It's wild, right? Everybody's getting diagnosed these days. Yeah, it is absolutely through the roof. Look at the statistics. In this study, people were getting diagnosed 6 times more than before. 6. Now there are special programs and tools. It seems to be mainstream. I prefer it back like the way it was in my parents' day. Children getting therapy, corrected, that sort of thing. But doesn't it seem like we're going a little bit overboard? Overboard? It's just ABA therapy. I guess, but the rise in numbers? Ah, so it's not a new thing then? Not at all, think about it. Think of all the greats of history that had it. Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Oprah. No, it's not a rise, it's always been there. It's just coming out of the shadows. It was just always underreported. I mean, once you know all of the signs. Wait, are we still talking about left-handedness? What are you talking about? I thought you were talking about autism diagnoses. Sometimes it's about seeing what was always there. Left-handers living in a right-handed world. Everyone is autistic these days. And just like left-handedness, rates of autism diagnoses have also been increasing too. Hey friends, I'm Mike, a late diagnosed autistic adult, and today we're going to talk about the belief that everyone is autistic these days. Throughout human history, there are many stories in which people have suffered as a result of being different in some way. Notably during the Dark Ages, when superstitious beliefs about how to live and how to behave were really prevalent. Although we've left the Dark Ages behind us, the potential for stigmatising and misunderstanding each other still exists deep within every single person. One didn't have to stick out in society to be on the receiving end of this deep distrust. Not so long ago during the Victorian era. Now remember, this is only the great-grandparents of the boomer generation, so still fairly recent as human history goes. If you were seen to be left-handed, you would be considered sinister or unlucky. Left-handed people were also seen as morally dubious. Children in school were frequently forced to write with their non-dominant hand, sometimes with their left hand tied behind their backs or struck with a cane to discourage its use. Does any of this sound familiar? The prevailing belief was that conforming to right-handed norms would benefit the child by making them better able to fit into right-handed society. Some medical and psychological theories of the time pathologised left-handedness, considering it a symptom of developmental disorders or a result of poor parenting. These views helped to justify the attempts to correct left-handedness and to help children fit in. This was, essentially, right-handed ABA. Socially, left-handed people were disabled. Tools, household items, even furniture were designed such that they would not suit the natural left-handedness. And this made everyday tasks more difficult. And because left-handed people had more challenges, this too then reinforced the perception that left-handedness was a disadvantage that needed to be fixed. Over time, and particularly towards the Victorian era and into the 20th century, attitudes towards left-handedness began to change. This shift was partly due to a growing understanding of biology and psychology, which challenged previous superstitions and misconceptions. However, it took much of the 20th century for these changes to lead to broader societal acceptance and accommodation of left-handed individuals. The autistic AF community is a smart bunch, and you have almost certainly worked it all out by now. Just take a look at this graph from the paper, The History and Geography of Human Handedness by I.C. McManus. From reported left-handed rates below 3% before 1920, these rates triple throughout the interwar period, levelling off at around 11 to 12% to the present day. Clearly, many of those who are left-handed still need some support, maybe adapted tools like left-handed scissors, but we don't think of left-handedness as an epidemic or a social contagion in the same way that those in the interwar period started accepting and accommodating left-handedness instead of training it out of children with the use of punishments and behaviour therapy. Can you imagine the horror filling the newspapers and the smoke-filled bars of the time? The rise in left-handedness is an epidemic. It must be caused by fashion. It must be the influence of foreign media. Or perhaps it's that newfangled Charleston music that's popular with the kids these days. I'm not saying left-handedness and autism are the same or even similar. What I am trying to do here is to bring sharp focus to the fact that you have one condition on one hand that's rapidly increasing in prevalence. People see 1%, 2%, oh my God, it's 3%, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's an epidemic. Everyone's left-handed. It's very similar with autism diagnoses. So let's talk about the actual rates of autism prevalence. What are they, and what does science have to say about it? Leo Kanner, back in 1943, thought that autism, or what he called early infantile autism, was a rare condition. By 1979, Lorna Wing and Judith Gold found that those with an IQ under 70, the rate was 5 in 10,000. And for those without any intellectual disability, the rate was 15 per 10,000. By 1993, Stefan Ehlers and Christopher Gilbury published results from a study of children in mainstream schools in Gothenburg, Sweden. For those children without any intellectual disability, they calculated a rate of 36 per 10,000 for a clinical diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, going up to 71 per 10,000 for those with clinical traits that would put them on the spectrum, should a diagnosis and more information have been available for them. In 2005, the UK's Office of National Statistics found a prevalence rate of 90 in 10,000. A year later, in 2006, children selected for having social and communication difficulties were screened using the ICD-10 criteria, giving an overall rate of 116 in 10,000. A study from 2009 in England, which monitors mental health, starts to include autism for the first time and finds a prevalence of around 1% of the population being autistic. Across the Atlantic in the US, a study from 2008 found that the prevalence rate of autism was 1 in 88 across 14 different states. In 2013, the National Centre for Health Statistics in the USA published findings from a telephone survey of parents and children aged 6 to 17 and found the prevalence rate is 1 in 50. In South Korea in 2011, it was 2.64%, significantly higher, and researchers found that 2/3 of students screened had never been diagnosed before and were identified during this research project. A meta-analysis from 2012, looking at the various studies of autistic prevalence from around the world to date in 2012, settled on 62 in 10,000 as a conservative baseline for autistic prevalence. They state that the prevalence of autistic diagnoses has increased over time and suggest that this is due to the broadening of the diagnostic criteria and increased awareness of the autism spectrum in both professionals and the public. They state serious concerns in the lack of data from certain data sets, such as low and middle income countries, and a, quote, lack of evidence from the majority of the world's population. For those who are or identify as female, diagnostic rates are a quarter of those who are male. If you are from a poor or middle income country, likely even lower still if you're non-white or not heterosexual, as indeed, in my case, if you're an adult, there's still a prevailing attitude among clinicians and doctors that providing support services that autism ends on the child's 18th birthday. I often hear the term adult autism as though this is somehow different to child autism with respect to diagnostic rates and support. Like left-handedness 100 years earlier, there is a stigma, and I on this channel and other autistic YouTubers wish to crush. This stigma is one of the reasons why those in Victorian society might have tried to hide their left-handedness. It's still a valid reason why some in today's society mask and try to hide our autistic traits. As I explored on a previous video on 5 reasons to get an autism diagnosis and 5 reasons not to, there are issues around access. I am privileged to have been able to pay privately for an assessment by highly qualified experts, but I still had to wait several months. It was this, or perhaps wait for years on the NHS. I will cover my experience in upcoming videos. I have one planned on burnout coming soon. Please subscribe, hit the like bell. The like bell? Hit the like button and stim the notification bell. It is squishy. There is a lot of inequality, and the research that I've read for this video is all linked in the description and well worth a read. There's evidence that clinicians are not all up to date, but things are getting better. There's also evidence that the public is getting more aware of what it's like to live as an adult on the autism spectrum. I like to think this is in no small part thanks to places like YouTube, and there's still the majority of the planet where there's little to zero diagnostic services, nor research, clearly no support. What is in fact the majority of the planet? What is considered normal is often matter. What is considered normal is often a matter of perspective and social construction, and where you're born. and when. I also suspect that autistic diagnostic rates are much greater than 1 in 100, but time will tell. Maybe future Mike can return to this video in years to come and see what new evidence there is, or isn't, to support this idea. Thank you to Emily, aged 12, for drawing this really cool picture of me and sending it in. I really, really like it. It's the only picture I've had drawn of me that I can actually remember. I certainly don't sit still long enough for most artists, so thank you so much. What do you all think in the comments? We've got tea and tails coming up soon, and someone will win a copy of Atypical by Pete Warmby. I'll post it anywhere in the world. Details will follow, so remember to sting the notification bell so you don't miss out. This video has been brought to you by a hat full of peeps. He's adventurous, this one. This little guy, put you back in the hat. That one is adventurous. A hat full of peeps. Look. We all think that you need to watch this video next. It's on the 5 reasons to pursue an autism diagnosis. And this video on the 5 reasons not to.